हेलो एंड वेलकम एवरीवन टू द डेली न्यूज एनालिसिस ऑफ 29th ऑफ जनवरी 2024। तो आज के इंपॉर्टेंट आर्टिकल हिंदू न्यूज़पेपर से वन बाय वन देखते हैं। रोहिंग्या रिफ्यूजी मस्ट मूव कोर्ट ओवर हेड कैंपेन ऑन फेसबुक, देन सेरेमनी सब्सटेंस। The year commences, but with deep foreboding. Aadhaar-based pay is a bad idea for MGNRIGS. Then only 1% women screened for cervical cancer. What are the RBI's guidelines on state guarantees? What is end-to-end encryption and how does it secure information? Ease of justice is the right of every citizen. Supreme Court its medium, says Modi. Independence of justice rests on freedom of judges to decide without pressure. Insert 3DS satellite set to launch in Sriharikota. First article है रोहिंग्या refugee move court over head campaign on Facebook. Flag high risk in Polier. A recent public interest litigation PIL plea filed by two Rohingya refugees before the Delhi High Court has flagged hate campaigns on the social media platform Facebook, referring to members of the community as terrorists and infiltrators, and exaggerating the number of Rohingya who fled ethnic violence in Myanmar and sought refuge in India. The petition was filed by Muhammad Hamim and Kausar Muhammad, residing in the national capital for the past 2 to 5 years, seeking protections of the right to life of the members of their community in Delhi and other parts of the country. Rohingya are a Muslim minority community from the Rakhine state of Myanmar against whom the Myanmar military had launched a campaign of mass atrocity in August 2017, causing more than 770,000 Rohingya to flee. At least 20,000 of them are in India, and most of them have cards that validate their identity as a refugee seeking safety from the UN Refugee Agency, which recognizes the Rohingya as a persecuted community. Physical threats. They said the community faces physical threats owing to the dissemination of violent hate remarks targeting them on the basis of their ethnicity and religion on Facebook. In the run up to the 2019 Lok Sabha election, several anti-Rohingya posts went viral on Facebook. They said, also as 2024 in is an election year for India, there is a high risk for widespread harmful content in both Hindi and other Indian languages originating in India, particularly political dishonesty content and misinformation can result in situation of violence against Rohingya community in India and abroad. The petition in the High Court said the PIL plea submitted screenshots of multiple online posts targeting the Rohingya in the country, emphasizing that harmful content and hate speech directed at Rohingya originates from within the India. The origins of these posts targeting them are in India, and the petitioner are affected by Facebook's failure to take actions against hate speech on its platform and its algorithms, which promotes hate speech and content on its platform, leading to situation of real-time violence against minority groups. The plea said. It said the presence of Rohingya refugees in India is a highly politicized matter, and they are disproportionately targeted with harmful content on Facebook, painting them as a threat to the country. The petition quoted a 2019 study by Equality Labs, an advocacy group that focuses on technology and human rights, into hate speech on Facebook in India, which found that 6% of the Islamophobia posts were especially anti-Rohingya. The members of the community comprised on only 0.02% of India's Muslim population at that time. The PIL said Facebook lack of content moderators in Indian language was contributing to the proliferations of hate speech on the social media platform. It added that Facebook had several options to prevent the spread and amplifications of hatred against the Rohingya. It possesses break the glass BTG measures referred to as levers designed for critical emergencies. These measures can effectively limit or turn off amplifying capabilities of Meta's Facebook parent company engagement centric algorithm, the PIL said. Meta has employed BTG measures in the US during the 2020 presidential election and the Capitol Hill riots on January 6, 2021, acknowledging the potential of its content shaping algorithm to promote divisive and inflammatory content. It said the plea had sought a direction on Facebook to deploy the same standard of content moderation for Hindi and Indian languages content that it employs for English language content. On the ground, the Rohingya community is fighting for survival. Muhammad Salim Ullah, 35, who has been living in a squalid refugee camp in Delhi's Kalindi Kunj since 2012, told the Hindu that they are dependent on water tankers to meet their drinking, hygiene, and domestic needs. Allegation unfolded. Mr. Ullah said the refugee camp gutted in fires that broke out in 2018-2021 and has 262 odd Rohingyas, including over 100 children under 12 years. He said most of them eke out a living doing odd jobs and working as daily wagers at construction sites. On social media posts insinuating that the community is involved in crime. Mr. Ullah said such allegations are unfounded. Then second article, ceremony substances. Given the circumstances behind the invitation to French President Emmanuel Macron, his visit to India last week was always going to be more about symbolism and ceremony than about substance. Mr. Macron, the sixth French president to grace the Republic Day celebration, stepped into the breach when US President Joseph Biden declined the invitation. In addition, India and France had in 2023 already sealed a number of agreements as they marked 25 years of their strategic partnership, a year that saw Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Mr. Macron meet a number of times. Not only had the two countries already announced a fairly ambitious Horizon 2047 relationship roadmap, but they had also stated plans for joint productions of military hardware, cutting edge technologies transfer, and new purchases deal for French aircrafts, engines, and submarines. Diplomats had their work out for them, with two sides having to prepare for the Republic Day visit with little time to spare and with so many agreements already announced. Many even speculated whether India had missed an opportunity to extend invitation to other partners, including from South Asian neighborhood of or global South, rather than getting a much invited France. As a result, it is understandable that many of the agreements announced after the Modi-Macron meeting in Jaipur and their time together watching the Republic Day parade were essentially built on the roadmap. These included the defense industrial roadmap meant to expand on plans for the two countries to co-design, co-develop and co-produce defense hardware in the air, on land and sea, as well as a space defense partnership. In addition, the two sides signed MOU document on agriculture, digital health, and science and technology cooperation. As an assembly line manufacturer of civilian helicopters, Airbus Tata was a fast but a private B2B deal. The two sides also issued a joint statement on regional and international development. India has been unable to find such common ground with other partners, including the US and Russia, on these issues, but was able to take shared positions with France on the condemnation of terror attack in Israel, the need for humanitarian assistance in Gaza and Ukraine, and concerns over the Red Sea attacks, while they did not demonstrate progress in other areas of cooperation, including big-ticket defense hardware deals being negotiated, nuclear cooperation for the long-delayed power project in Jaitapur, and for small modular reactors. It is clear that each is a work in progress, demonstrating the continuity in a partnership built on a mutual respect for strategic autonomy, which Mr. Macron said at the presidential banquet was also driven by their shared commitment to tradition and innovation. The next article that the year commences but with deep foreboding. Seldom has a new year commenced with such deep foreboding as 2024. Both the geopolitical and domestic outlook appear distinctly unfavorable, predicting how much worse the situation could become as the year advances could, however, be hazardous. The war in Ukraine, while stalemated at present, is set to enter a new phase since neither side appears ready for peace talks or negotiations. The danger is that one side or the other might be tempted to escalate matters in their favor by restoring to still more dangerous weapon available in their ar- armory, not excluding nuclear. It is obvious that neither Russia nor Ukraine plus the North Atlantic Treaty Organization can afford to be seen as having been forced to retreat for its for if Russia is compelled to step back, not only would it mean the humbling of Russia per se, but it would also signal a major victory for West. If, on the other hand, Ukraine plus NATO is compelled to accept peace on Russia's terms, it would comprehensively alter the politics of Europe. Key questions would thereafter arise about the very utility of NATO as a bulwark against aggression. West Asia is the greater worry. It is the situation in West Asia that is caused for a greater alarm. The Israel Hamas conflict has resurrected many fires that had plagued the region previously. The conflict is getting further enlarged as the Iran-Pakistan standoffs in recent weeks has demonstrated. It could well set off a Pyre fire across the region, which would have consequences for much of the world. Iran is, in the meantime, displaying an aggressive mien, and Arab monarchies are preparing for the worst. Iran is encouraging the Houthis in Yemen to attack United States and foreign ships. The outcomes is the West Asia, which has always had a cornucopia of problems, is diplomacy, which has been largely confined to steps such as sending its sixth fleet to the region. Purposeful diplomacy means that the situation can only worsen. The Indo-Pacific region may appear less incendiary as of now, but there are several underlying tensions that could turn the situation explosive during the year. The election in Taiwan have produced an anti-China dispensation whose leader Lai Ching-te is on record stating that his mission is to defend Taiwan from the intimidations from China and protect its democratic way of life. China is least likely to take kindly to this, though it may not be provoked into taking any preemptory steps just yet. Nevertheless, an anti-mainland China government in Taiwan could well act as a lightning rod. Many countries in the East Asia, such as the Philippines, may feel encouraged to display a more aggressive man in their disputes with China over territories lying within the first and second island chain. This could provoke China, thus raising the stake for everyone in the East Asia and Indo-Pacific region. The area is already being touted as one of the main areas of the strategic contestations between the US and China, and hence would bring in the US to stake its claims. The consequential result would be highlighted tensions across the region involving many countries of East and Southeast Asia, not excluding India. India's problem external and internal. All this also suggests that 2024 may not see any lowering of tensions between India and China, including on the issue of disputed border between the two countries. In China may remain preoccupied with several of its other concerns, but India cannot but maintain a strict vigil as far as the China-India border, Indian border is concerned, not to be lost sight of. Also, is the fact that despite China's economic difficulties, the West's aggressive wing of India as this time may well provoke China into taking measures that could result in the humbling of India in the eyes of the world. Hence, highlight and vigilance is called for against any possible maneuvers on China's part. India may also be required this year to sports of its relationship with some of its neighbors. Any simulations of wolf warriors diplomacy of the kind practices by China would not suit India when it comes to its neighbors such as the Maldives. India must adhere to its relations in traditional policy of maintaining excellent relations with all countries, especially those in South Asian region. Bhutan falls into a special category and will need close attention. Every effort needs to be made in 2024 to strengthen relations with Bhutan, which is being aggressively owed by China. The global outlook notwithstanding, India may face its share of internal problem in 2024. Elections are scheduled to be held in middle of the year, and though the results ipso facto may not provoke any problems, there could be other issues. The build up to elections and immediate aftermath could become a problem. A feature of the forthcoming election is the strong veneer of religiosity that pervades the campaign propaganda of certain groups. Unlike that, in many previous elections, more to the points and impressions exist that this election is in the mold of a do or die struggle, leaving the little scope for any give or take, which is greatly inflaming passions across the spectrum. In popular imaginations, the Rama Janmabhoomi issue and the installation of Ram ideals in Ayodhya had currently become intertwined with the ruling dispensations, the elections campaign. Further, the current campaign rhetoric across all parties is not helping matters. It is contributing to the sharp cleavage among the electoral along religious and other lines, a consequence of which could be highlighted communal tensions following the elections. It is imperative that after the election that care is taken to see that the situation does not get out of hand. Apart from the communal aspect, close attention may also need to be paid some of the other problems that had plagued India in the past but have remained dormant. Manipur is a case in the point that peace in the northeast cannot be taken for granted. Apart from Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, and Assam, especially the last named with the United Liberation Front of Assam's anti-talk faction against again raising its head, need close attention on the mainland. Left-wing extremist activity has declined of late should not be ignored since its underpinning and its ability to resort to violent attacks in some of the mainland states of the country remain. Internal security during 2024 will thus demand highlight and vigilance parliament's functioning. The year 2024 could also be the year of reckoning for India's parliament. Much more than damage control may be needed. The final weeks of parliament in 2023 had witnessed an unfortunate series of events that besmirched India's record as an upholder of parliamentary traditions. First came the in lamentable incident which where parliament security was breached by two outsiders. The sequel to this was an unprecedented standoff between the opposition and the ruling party, followed by the suspensions of 146 members of the both houses in the surcharged atmosphere that might prevail after the election. May more effort of its kind to stall parliamentary proceedings may well occur. It is important that after the new parliament is convened, House leaders of all parties ensure the smooth conduct of parliament. One of the fundamental responsibility of the parliament is to protect constitutionally guaranteed liberties, and if an elected parliament fails to do this, it would deal a mortal blow to the nation. If the situation does not improve even after a new parliament is convened, it would only provide ammunition to opponent of parliamentary democracy. This then could well become the key issue in 2024. It is vitally important and necessary to reinforce the fundamental to functioning of democracy as we have known it. The next article is Aadhaar based pay a bad idea for MGNREGS. On January 1, the Rural Development Ministry make Aadhaar-based payment system (ABPS) mandatory to the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme (MGNREGS). This is after deadline extension by Union Government disregarding several memorandums by workers to the ministry to not make ABPS mandatory. There are two modes of wage payments in MGNREGS account based and ABPS. For the first wage transfer, use worker's name, bank account number, and IFSC code of the bank branch. For ABPS, a few steps are minimally needed. First, a worker's Aadhaar number must be seeded with their job cards, which means authenticating her job card details with the Aadhaar database. Authentication is successful only when all the details including spelling and gender in the job cards match with those in other database. Second, their Aadhaar must be linked to their bank accounts. Third, the Aadhaar number of each workers must be mapped correctly through their branch which with a software mapper of the National Payment Corporation of India, which act as a clearly house of ABPS. The Aadhaar number acts as the financial address, and a cash transfer gets deposited to the last Aadhaar linked bank accounts. Incorrectness in any of the above steps for ABPS means that the worker is denied work, does not receive wages, or is not paid in their preferred account. Consequently, workers have to spend hundreds of rupees and lose several days of their livelihood to fix their technological glitches. Claimed reasons stand on questionable grounds. In fact, even the realities of deleting duplicates are fraught with errors. No publicly available audits on the procedures followed by the officials in deleting job cards, and the valid scientific assessment of the gains of such an exercise are available. On the contrary, two recently published research papers in Economic and Political Weekly show how officials have resorted to deleting job cards owing to pressure from the union government to meet 100% of the other seeding targets. Since different administrative units are involved in creating different documents in rural areas, spelling mismatches are common. Even UIDAI has certified that only the biometrics are correctly captured, while the democratic details are left to the discretion of local officials in their paper. Anuj Anjur, Bhaskar, Arpita Sarkar and Preeti Singh present testimonies of officials who ascribe the reasons for such rampant deletions to the pressure to meet Aadhaar seeding targets. They also present strong evidence of exaggerated savings claims due to Aadhaar. In response to a question in Lok Sabha, in Rural Development Ministry reported that there was a 247% increase in job cards deletions in financial year 22-23 compared to the previous years. In the last 2 years alone, job cards of over 7 crore workers got deleted. As per the government owned data, as on January 11, 2024, out of the total 25.6 crore registered worker, only 16.9 crore workers are eligible for ABPS while all workers are eligible for account-based payment. In a press release on January 1, 2024, the ministry has tried to justify making ABPS mandatory in MGNREGS to no credible evidence supporting the decision was provided. Rather, it is stated, among other things, that a working paper released by a public research and advocacy group like LibTech has been referred, which claims that there is no significant gain with ABPS vis-a-vis bank account payment, and it is just 3% more in case of ABPS, keeping the scale of Mahatma Gandhi NREGS. This 3% gain is also a very significant gain. Misrepresentation. We welcome that the MOR MORD has taken cognizance of this paper, but sadly it misrepresents the findings and incorrectly cites that the paper endorses ABPS. Let us see why. Based on a sample of 3.2 crore wage transactions, the paper analysis if there is any statistical significant differences in the time to transfer wages using account-based payments and ABPS. If all the transitions using the two payment modes were considered, and then one observed that ABPS was quicker than account based by 3%, then the Rural Development Ministry claims of gains could be considered a talking point. But LibTech study is based on a sample of 3.2 crore transitions in a same dataset. Principle of satellite science detects that only if the difference is statistically significant can we claim that the one payment system is more efficient than the other, but the difference was not statistically significant, which provides evidence that the ABPS is not quicker than account-based payment. The government has also claimed a lower rejection rate in ABPS compared to account-based payment. The paper finds no statistically significant differences between the rejection rate in the two modes of payment either. In summary, the paper refutes the ministry repeated claims of higher efficiency in wage payments using ABPS. Timely payments is only a function of the government allocating adequate funds. With adequate funds, the time taken to pay workers will not be different whether it uses ABPS or account-based payment. The difficulties is in resolving problems with ABPS far outweigh the difficulties in resolving problems with account-based payment, and so we advocate for account-based payment. The next article है only 1% women screened for cervical cancer in India. Only 1% of women are being screened for cervical cancer in India, despite the World Health Organization's recommendation that at least 70% of women should get tested. The share of women screened remains around 1% mark of work for oral and breast cancer too. Table 1 shows the share of women aged 15 to 49 who underwent screening test for cancer in 2019-21 across states. The table shows that cancer screening did not cross the 10% mark for any type of cancer in the state. However, many southern states and select states in Northeast have shown initiative in testing more women. In Tamil Nadu, for instance, 7% of women said that they were screened for cervical cancer and 3.8% for breast cancers, the highest among the two types of across the states. Kerala, Mizoram, Manipur, and Maharashtra also crossed the 1% mark under these two types. In Andhra Pradesh, 5% screened for oral cancer, the highest for this type of cancer across states. On the other hand, only 0.1% of women were screened for any type of cancer in West Bengal, the lowest in India. Gujarat too performed poorly with 0.2% altogether. In India, the shape of women screened for cervical, breast, and oral cancer stood at 1.2%, 0.6%, and 0.7% respectively as of 2019-21. In contrast, the share of women screened for cervical cancer in advanced economies such as Sweden, Ireland, the US, and UK was more than 70%, even if only comparable economies were considered. India lagged for far behind. Chart 2 shows the share of women aged 30 to 49 who were screened for cervical cancer as of 2019 in BRICS nation. Russia led the list with 93%, followed by 58% in Brazil, 52% in South Africa, in India, Egypt, and Ethiopia coverage with less than 5%. A look at Tamil Nadu's data throw light on the way forward and some potential pain points. Chart 3 shows that even in the state with the highest screening share, most tests were conducted among the older women. A recent survey published by Apollo Hospital, which analyzed 1.5 lakh of its health screening in the 5 years, found that 25% of breast cancer incidents occurred in women aged 40 under 40 years in India. This stressed on the importance of casting the net wide and encouraging younger women to get screened too. That 4 shows the share of women screened for cervical cancer in Tamil Nadu across various levels of schooling. Over 10% of women completed who completed less than 5 years and between 5 and 7 years of schooling in Tamil Nadu were screened for cervical cancer. The share reduced cervix considerably as the year of women school education increased. Stat 5 shows the share of women screened for cervical and breast cancer in Tamil Nadu across the social groups. The share of women screened from scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and other backward classes communities was higher compared to other community. Data from Chart 4 and 5 shows how state interventions helped Tamil Nadu achieve respectively levels of screening. It shows that state-sponsored screening drives at government health centers make cancers testing accessible to low income groups as well. It also shows that lack of awareness is not the only factor behind poor cancer detection, as higher education levels have not led to more screenings. The next article है what are the RBI guidelines on state guarantees. On January 16, a working group constituted by the Reserve Bank of India made certain recommendations to address issues relating to guarantees extended by the state governments. Among other things, the working group prescribed a uniform reporting framework for the guarantees extended. Besides expanding the definitions of what constitutes a guarantee. What constitutes a guarantee? A guarantee is a contingent liability of a state processed by an ancillary contract that protect the lender investor from the risk of borrower defaulting. They promise to be answerable for debt default or miscarriage of the letter. The entity to whom the guarantee is given in the creditor, the defaulting entity on whose behalf the guarantee is given is called the principal debitor, and the entity giving the guarantee, state government in this context, is called the surety. If A delivers certain goods and serves to B, and B does not make the agreed upon payment, B is defaulting and at the risk of being sued for the debt. C steps in and promises that he would pay for the default of B. This is a guarantee. The RBI working group's report notes that while guarantees are innocuous in good times, it may lead to significant physical risk and burden the state at the other times. This may result in unanticipated cash outflows and increased debt. State government are offered required to sanction and issue guarantees on behalf of state-owned enterprise, cooperative institutions, urban local bodies, and or other state-governed entities to respective lenders. The latter could be commercial banks and other financial institutions. In return, the entities are required to pay a guarantee fee to the government. What about the definition of guarantee? The working group has suggested that the term guarantee should be used in a broader sense and include all instruments by whatever name they may be called if they create obligation on the guarantor to make a payment on behalf of the borrower at a future date. Further, it must not make any distinction between the conditional and unconditional or financial or performance guarantees in order to assess the financial fiscal risk. What about according to guarantee? According to guarantees, the working group has recommended that the government guarantees should not be used to obtain finance. Though state-owned entities which substitute budgetary resources of the state government, additionally, they should not be allowed to create direct liability, de facto liability on the state. It further recommends adherence to the government of finance guidelines that stipulate that guarantee be given only for the principal amount and a normal interest component of the underlying loan. Furthermore, they must not be extended for external commercial borrowings must not be extended for more than 80% of the project loan and must not be provided to private sector companies institutions. What about risk determination? The group suggests that states assign appropriate risk weights indicative of the holdings. The lender should ideally have to adjust the associated risk before extending the guarantees. The categorization could be high, medium, or low risk. These must also consider past record of default. Additionally, it is deemed a ceiling on insurance of guarantees as desirable. The report agrees that should a guarantee be required to invoked, it could lead to significant fiscal stress on the state government to manage the potential stress for incremental guarantees, additional guarantees issued during a year. It proposes a ceiling at 5% of revenue receipts or 0.5% of GSDP, whichever is less. What about the disclosure? The working group has recommended that the apex banking regulator may consider advising banks and NBFCs to disclose the credit extent to state-owned entities backed by the state government, guarantees availability of data both from the issuer and the lender. The report states may improve the credibility of the data reported by the state government. It has also sought a proper database capturing all extended guarantees. The next article is what is end-to-end encryption and how does it secure information. Information is wealth and an important way to protect it is encrypted. End-to-end E2E encryption is particular project information in a way that has transformed human rights organizations, law enforcement agencies, and tech companies' outlook on their ability to access information about individual to protect, prosecute, or profit from their engagement, as the case may be. What is encryption? Fundamentally, encryption is the act of changing some consumable information into an inconsumable form based on some rules. There are different kinds of such rules. For example, the data encryption standards plus some settings encrypts the words ice cream to ADNGZRRT XCPEDUZZADN7DWA equal to with the key KITE kite. If the key is say motorcycle instead of the encrypted text becoming this plus this equal to the key is some data using which a computer can unlock decrypt some logged encrypted text knowing the set of rule you do to lock it. Say I write down this and on one piece of paper and kite and on another piece of paper crumple them both and throw them at my friend across room. Suddenly a man I did not notice in the middle of the room leaps up to snatch the piece of paper saying this and runs away with it. But since this fellow does not know the key kite, he won't know what the piece of paper says. This is how encryption protects digital information digitally. What is E2E encryption? E2E encryption is the that refers to particular locations between which information moves. Say you are chatting with your friend on a messaging app. When you send a message, it first goes to a server maintained by the company but that built the app. Based on its instructions, the server routes the message to your friend. In this setup, two important forms of encryption are encrypted in transit and E2E encryption. Encryption is in transit means before a message is relayed from the server to you, vice versa. It is encrypted. This scheme is used to prevent an actor from being able to read the content and the message by intercepting the relay. The E2E encryption, the message is encrypted both in transit and at the rest. That is, when being relayed from your phone to the server. Receives and when it is sitting inside the server it is only decryptive when your friend receives the message. So friends, this is all for today and we will meet from tomorrow onwards with new news articles which are relevant from UPSC perspective. So till then, keep studying and thank you.